Hello everyone! Thank you for joining me for this session about business taxes in Washington State. Before we get started, I want to introduce myself. My name is Quinn Dickason, and I have worked for the Department of Revenue for 21 years. Today we will talk about excise taxes in general, and then dig into some specific tax classifications that are likely to apply to your business. I will briefly explain how and when to report and pay those taxes on your excise tax returns. We will discuss personal property tax and unclaimed property. And then I will direct you to some resources available to help you report your income correctly. To begin, I want to talk about the four main excise tax types in general. I'm going to discuss these tax types broadly here, and we will talk more specifically about each of them later in the presentation. Please note, for the remainder of the presentation, I will refer to business and occupation tax as B&O tax. B&O tax is a tax on the act of engaging in business. There are more than 50 tax classifications with varying tax rates. The classification you report under is based on the business activity you perform. Today, I will discuss retailing, wholesaling, manufacturing, and service and other activities B&O taxes. Public utility tax is a tax on public service businesses. There are several public utility tax classifications, each with a different tax rate. The classification you report under is based on the public service you provide. Today, I will discuss motor and urban transportation public utility taxes. We will also discuss retail sales tax and use tax. Retail sales tax is due on most retail sales and must be collected by the seller and submitted with the excise tax return. Whenever you purchase items to use rather than resell, then you must pay retail sales tax to your vendor, or use tax with your excise tax return. There are some exceptions, and we will talk about a few of those exceptions later in the presentation. Last but not least, I will provide a high-level overview of personal property tax. This tax is paid by businesses on the value of assets used in the business. It does not apply to inventory held for sale. Throughout this presentation, I will refer to some records or documents you will need to keep in the event you are ever audited by the Department of Revenue. You are expected to keep copies of your business records for 5 years. The records you need to keep include anything you use to file your excise tax returns, especially your income records, documentation required for deductions, and purchase invoices. These records can be kept electronically, including scanned copies of documents. As we discussed previously, the state of Washington does not have an income tax. Instead, businesses pay B&O tax to help fund our state government services. The B&O tax is the tax levied on businesses for the act of engaging in business. It is a transaction-based tax, and the classification you report is determined by the type of business you conduct. The B&O tax is due on your gross sales income, less some available deductions that we'll discuss later. There are more than 50 different tax classifications with varying tax rates. No deduction is allowed for labor, materials, taxes, or other costs of doing business. As I mentioned before, the taxes you report to the Department of Revenue are different from the taxes you report to the IRS. In Washington, businesses report based on gross income rather than net income. The amount you report on your excise tax returns is the gross amount you charge your customers for your products and services. This amount includes charges for shipping, delivery, and installation. You may not deduct your costs of doing business, such as your costs for materials, labor, or utilities. Our most common B&O tax classification is retailing. The retailing tax classification covers sales of goods and retail services sold to end consumers. For example, when the hardware store sells me a hammer, it is a retail sale because I am the end user of that hammer. Generally, a retail service is a service that acts upon real or personal property. Examples of retail services include construction, landscaping and lawn maintenance, and photography. Retailing B&O tax is also due on sales of digital goods, such as movies and music, and digitally automated services, such as online multiplayer games. The wholesaling tax classification applies to sales of goods or services that are later resold without intervening use. These sales are to resellers. For example, when MC Hammer Company sells hammers to the hardware store, it is a wholesale sale because the hardware store then resells the hammers to its customers. Wholesalers must obtain a reseller permit from their customers in order for the sale to be considered a wholesale sale. Without a reseller permit, the sale is considered to be a retail sale. You must keep copies of the reseller permits provided by your customers for 5 years. Speaking of reseller permits, here is an example of one. Reseller permits are issued by the Department of Revenue to businesses who apply for the permit and meet the qualifying criteria. The application is free and available through our online portal, MyDOR. Reseller permits are usually valid for 4 years. Your permit may be limited to 2 years if you are a contractor, or if your business has been open for less than 12 months, or if your business has not reported income in the last 12 months. If you purchase goods or services for resale, you should provide your vendor with your reseller permit so that they do not collect retail sales tax from you. You may only use your reseller permit to purchase goods or services that you resell without intervening use. Using your reseller permit to purchase other items or services could result in a penalty for misuse. Manufacturing is defined as making a new, different, or more useful product. An example of manufacturing is the making of hammers at the MC Hammer Company factory. Manufacturing B&O tax is due on the gross income from sales of the manufactured product. It is due on the products you manufacture in Washington. Tax is also due under either the wholesaling or retailing tax classification, depending on the nature of the sale. A multiple activities tax credit is available to make sure that the tax is paid only once on the sale of the product by the manufacturer. The service and other activities tax classification is the catch-all for any activities that are not taxable under any other tax classification. Some examples of activities taxable under this classification include the services provided by doctors, lawyers, and beauticians. The service and other activities B&O tax has 2 tax rates. The rate you pay is based on your total income subject to service and other activities B&O tax in the previous year. If your business or affiliate group reported more than $1 million of taxable income under the service and other activities tax classification in the previous year, then you pay at the higher rate of 1.75%. If your business or affiliate group reported less than $1 million of taxable income under the service and other activities tax classification in the previous year, then you pay at the lower rate of 1.5%. Some deductions are available, though they are not the same as income tax deductions. Some deductions are available for B&O tax, some are available for sales tax, and some are available for both. The most often claimed deductions are listed on the slide. I will mention each deduction listed briefly, along with the documentation you should keep in order to validate the deduction should you ever be audited. Casual sales are sales of items outside the normal course of business. This deduction is available for B&O tax purposes, though you are required to collect retail sales tax where appropriate. For instance, if you are a dentist and sell the TV from your waiting room, you would collect the retail sales tax from the buyer and submit it with your excise tax return. But you would not be expected to pay B&O tax on the sale of the TV since it is outside your normal business activities. The documentation required for this deduction is the sales invoice. Interstate and foreign sales. Goods sold and delivered to customers outside of Washington are not subject to tax in Washington. Documentation required for the deduction includes the sales invoice and the shipping document. The returns and allowances deduction is available anytime a sale is reported and then later refunded to the customer. The documentation required for this deduction includes the original sales invoice, and you must be able to show that the sale was originally reported and the return slip or credit memo issued to your customer when you processed their return. I also want to highlight one B&O tax credit you may qualify for. The small business credit is available for business and occupation tax. The amount of the credit is based on the total tax due. If you file your tax returns online and qualify for the credit is calculated and subtracted from the total tax due automatically. And I am happy to share that the amount of small business credit is increasing in 2023. The public utility tax is a tax on public service businesses. This tax is paid instead of B&O tax. Public service businesses include those that provide energy, water, and sewer services. They also include businesses who transport people and goods for hire, which I will discuss in detail here. Hauling for hire includes hauling goods as well as transporting people. There are two classifications of transportation public utilities, and the classification you report is based on the transportation distance. Urban transportation is the hauling of goods or people where the start and end of the haul are within a city's limits, or within 5 miles of the city limits of the start or end of the haul, or within 5 miles of the city limits of any two cities that are no more than 5 miles apart. These distances are not measured in road miles, but using a straight line or as the crow flies. The motor transportation classification applies to all hauls that do not qualify as urban transportation hauls. We have a lookup tool on our website to help you determine what tax classification to report for each of your hauls. You simply enter the beginning and ending addresses, and the website will tell you if the haul qualifies as urban transportation or motor transportation. Retail sales tax is paid by the customer to the seller, who holds that money in trust until they file their excise tax return. At that time, the sales tax is paid to the state. Retail sales tax is collected on most sales that are subject to retailing B&O tax. The state retail sales tax rate is 6.5%. Local jurisdictions add a local sales tax to fund their government programs. The local rates vary from 0.5% to 4.1%. As a seller, you are liable for payment of the sales tax even if you fail to collect it or collect it at the wrong rate. In addition, if sales tax is collected at a higher rate than what is due, the total sales tax you collect is due to the state. In addition to sales of tangible personal property and retail services, other purchases subject to sales tax include gym memberships, tanning and tattooing, lodging for less than 30 days, telephone service, parking, and title and escrow services. So, how do you know what sales tax rate to charge your customers? It depends on what you are selling. For sales of goods, the local rate is based on where the customer receives the goods. For sales of hammers at the hardware store, it is the location of the hardware store. For sales of appliances that are delivered to the customer's home, it is the location of the customer's home. For sales of labor, such as construction or maintenance, the local rate is based on the location where the construction is performed, or the address of the job site. For rentals of goods with a single payment, the local rate is based on where the customer picks up the rental item. For rentals with multiple payments, the first payment is taxed at the location where the rental item is picked up, with the rest of the payments taxed at the location where the rental item is used. Since local governments rely on sales tax collections to fund their programs, it is important to collect the correct sales tax rate and report it to the right location. To assist you with this effort, we have many tools available on our website to determine correct sales tax rates. You can enter an address and find out the tax rate for that specific location. You can use a map search or longitude and latitude coordinates. We offer mobile apps for businesses to find sales tax rates when they are away from their office and their computer. Our website also lists sales tax rates alphabetically by city and county, by cities grouped by county, and in Excel or QuickBooks file formats. As I mentioned before, some deductions are available for B&O tax, some are available for sales tax, and some are available for both. The most often claimed retail sales tax deductions are listed on this slide. You will notice that interstate and foreign sales is listed again. This deduction is available for both B&O tax and retail sales tax. The rest of the deductions listed here are available for sales tax only. Gross sales tax collected by facilitator. This deduction is used by marketplace sellers where a marketplace facilitator collects and pays Washington sales tax on their behalf. You need to have proof the facilitator is collecting sales tax on your behalf. Marketplace facilitators are required to provide you with gross sales information for all Washington sales, which you can then use to calculate your B&O tax and any other applicable taxes. Sales to U.S. government. The United States government is not required to pay sales tax. The deduction for sales to U.S. government is for sales made to the U.S. government itself. It does not include sales to government employees or other government jurisdictions, such as the state of Washington or local counties or cities. The documentation you need for this deduction includes the original sales invoice and proof that payment came from the United States government, such as a copy of the check. Taxable amount for tax paid at source. If you purchase items for resale and you paid sales tax to the vendor, you can claim a deduction from retail sales tax to recover the sales tax paid in error. The documentation you need for this deduction is the purchase invoice. We have discussed when you need to collect retail sales tax, but what about when you need to pay retail sales tax? You need to pay sales tax on all products and retail services you consume. You are considered the consumer of any item or retail service you use up while operating your business that you do not incorporate into another good you sell. You may not use your reseller permit to purchase these items because you are not reselling them. For instance, cleaning supplies are not items you resell unless you operate a janitorial supply company. So, assuming you do not resell cleaning supplies, you must pay sales tax when you purchase them. So, what happens if you didn't pay sales tax on an item or retail service you used? You pay use tax directly to the Department of Revenue with your excise tax return. Use tax is a companion to retail sales tax. Use tax is due when retail sales tax should have been paid, but was not. For instance, when you purchase items online from out-of-state vendors who do not charge retail sales tax, use tax is due when that item is first used in Washington. The tax rate is the same as the retail sales tax rate for the location where the item is first used. You can use the tax rate lookup tool on our website to find out the appropriate tax rate to report. The amount subject to tax is the total purchase price of the item, including any charges for delivery or installation. Some examples of items you might need to report use tax on include items purchased online, items purchased outside Washington, such as in Oregon, and brought back to Washington, and digital goods and services. You must pay either retail sales tax or use tax on all assets not used in manufacturing and consumable supplies, such as office supplies. Litter tax is imposed on those industries whose products are reasonably related to the litter problem. The litter tax applies to sales made within this state. It is due in addition to any other taxes. It is not collected from the buyer, but is paid by the business. The taxes are deposited into the Waste Reduction, Recycling, and Litter Control account and used by the Department of Ecology for highway cleanup programs. Litter tax is paid by manufacturers, wholesalers, and retailers of 13 categories of products. Some of the categories were combined in the list shown here so that they would fit on the slide. The 13 categories are food for humans or pet consumption, groceries, cigarettes and tobacco products, soft drinks and carbonated beverages, beer and other malt beverages, wine, newspapers and magazines, household paper and paper products, glass containers, metal containers, plastic or fiber containers, cleaning agents and toiletries, and non-drug drugstore sundry items such as diapers. So when do you need to file? You need to file either monthly, quarterly, or annually. This frequency is assigned to you when you register your business with the Department of Revenue. Your filing frequency is determined by the amount of tax you pay, or if you haven't filed any returns yet, it is based on the amount we estimate you will be required to pay. You can find out what your filing frequency is in a few ways. When you registered your business, you should have received a welcome letter from the Department of Revenue. Your filing frequency is listed on that letter. If you no longer have that letter, you can check your account online on MyDOR to see when your next tax return is due. Or you can always call our telephone information center and one of our agents will assist you. On the slide, you can see when tax returns are usually due. For monthly filers, it would be the 25th day of the following month. The March return is due April 25th. For quarterly filers, it would be the last day of the month following the end of the quarter. So the quarter 1 return for January through March is due April 30th. Annual returns are due on April 15th of the following year. If the due date falls on a weekend or state holiday, then the due date is moved to the next business day. You can request a change to your filing frequency by calling us or sending a message through MyDOR. Electronic filing is now required for all businesses with limited exceptions. The MyDOR system is customizable for your business activity and calculates the taxes due, including some credits available. You have several payment options available through MyDOR, including electronic funds transfer directly from your bank to our bank, and credit card. Payment by credit card includes a small fee in addition to the taxes due. On your account page is an Action Items tab that includes all of the various tasks you might need to complete for your accounts. If we send you letters or messages, they will be listed here. We send important information to you this way, so please make sure to read those letters and messages. We have more information about MyDOR, including step-by-step instructions, on our website. Personal property tax is similar to real property tax, except that the tax is due on tangible property rather than real property. The primary characteristic of personal property is its mobility. It can include machinery, equipment, supplies, and furniture. It does not include inventory held for sale. Only business property is subject to personal property tax. Items you own as an individual separate from your business are exempt. Personal property tax is administered by your county assessor. The Department of Revenue oversees the personal property tax program statewide to make sure that the tax is applied consistently from county to county. You must provide a list to your county assessor of all of the business property you owned as of January 1st of each year. This list is due to the county assessor by April 30th. The list includes the date of purchase, the purchase price, and the type of property. The assessor will go through your list and assign a taxable value for each item listed, based on current market value. Property tax is due on the total taxable value of all business property at the same rate as real property tax. The tax is due the following year, with half due on April 30th and the other half due on October 31st. Every state in the U.S. has an unclaimed property program aimed at connecting people with money they have forgotten about. Unclaimed property is money or intangible property owed to an individual or business. Property is considered unclaimed after it is held for a period of time with no contact with the owner of the property. Abandoned property is turned over to the Department of Revenue, and we return it to its owner. The most common forms of unclaimed property you might hold are uncashed payroll checks or deposits. You must file an unclaimed property report with the Department of Revenue by October 31st of each year. If you don't hold any unclaimed property, you report a negative or no property report. Our website provides additional information and a search feature so you can find out if you have any unclaimed property held by the state. If you do, the claims process is quite easy and you can expect to receive your property in about 2 months. Our website provides a wealth of information and resources to help you file your tax returns correctly every time. We have guides for common industries and easy-to-understand articles on a variety of tax topics. If you're still unsure how to report, you can submit requests for specialized assistance. Binding tax rulings provide answers to your questions that are binding on both you and the department, as long as the facts and the law remain the same. If you have multiple questions, you may benefit from the free tax consultation service offered by the department. To get started, you submit a questionnaire, and then a tax consultant meets with you to learn about your business. They will provide you with written instructions so you know how to report your income going forward. If you are not able to find answers to your questions on our website, you can call our telephone information center or send us a chat message. We have agents available to answer your calls and chats between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. Monday through Friday, except 8 to 9 a.m. most Wednesdays. Thank you again for joining me for this session of your conference. It was a pleasure to connect with you today.